From the Ash Rises a Phoenix, Chapter 9, written by Kangarooney. The warmth of the sun woke him. Warmth? Sun? Aaron tried to pull himself out of unconsciousness quicker, but his body refused. Soak in the sun, his body begged. Just relax a little longer. He could keep his eyes closed, inhale the sweet smell of the forest. Imagine he's camping with his friends. Let the daydream last a few minutes more. He thought, maybe I should sleep. It was daytime. They wouldn't be moving on, not when the Titans are most active. Yet, just as he decided to fall back into the peaceful comfort of sleep, it eluded him. Instead, he ached. Throbbing hurt chased the floaty feelings away, forcing him awake. He moaned. Aaron? Or at least, that's what he thought they said. They might have said, scare him, or I've learned, or even Karen? Though he doesn't know a person named that, so maybe not. The voice spoke again, the word harder to decipher than the last time. What? He asked. Well, he tried to at the very least. If he thought the unnamed voice's words were hard to understand, his were even worse. He wanted to know, what's going on? What happened? Why do his everyday aches feel jagged? He opened his eyes. The world was a blur. Colors smudged together, green into bright, into green, into dark. The bright hurt his head. He closed his eyes just as quickly and threw an arm over his face to block out the red peeking through his eyelids. Oh, Sina, he whined, agonized. No! The voice pushed him back down. He wasn't even aware he had risen to a half seat. Your arm was crushed. Aaron, stay down. What happened? He managed. His mouth felt like it was full of stones, dried and cracking. Whilst above, he was thirsty. You don't remember? They asked, avoiding his question. Why were they making him talk? No, his throat rasped. Had he eaten dirt? Gargled sand? He coughed, trying to clear his throat. Each cough exacerbated the feeling instead, and it took him a while to cease the fit. They said his arm had been crushed. What happened? Gingerly, he opened his eyes, slowly, one after the other. His vision oriented itself. The blur of light shaped into beams from the sun. The darkness became shadows. The green evolved into leaves. Below, the firm and rough texture belied their regular sleeping conditions. They were in a tree. Again? Still? What happened? He coughed, held his breath, and ignored the tickle in his throat. What? Firmer. Answer him. Answer me. We tried to collect water from the Titans. Aaron turned to the speaker. Their hair was black. Mikasa. Your gear malfunctioned. You caught the Titan and were completely enveloped in the steam. I couldn't see you. She bit her lip and looked away, quieter. I jumped down and pulled you out. It had a hold of your arm. When I pulled, it tightened its grip and your arm. She trailed off and kept her vision fixed down. I'm sorry, Aaron. Mikasa saved him. Mikasa. He whispered her name. Look at him. Look at me. She didn't. Mikasa, thank you. Look at me. He wanted to say more, but his voice still hurt. We're family. She hesitated over the phrase, still looking away. I'm sorry I wasn't quicker. She raised her eyes to his, hesitant. Aaron, I used up my gas. I don't have any left for my gear. They were ruined. They were almost out of gas, almost out of food. At least they had water, right? Why was his voice so awful? His arm was crushed, not his voice. Why couldn't he just talk? Water, finally. Oh, Mikasa rubbed her fingers together. We did get water, but we used it to treat your wounds. You were bleeding everywhere. Armin said we needed to stop any infection. No, they needed the water to stay alive. Why would they waste it on him? They were all dehydrated. If his woozy state earlier meant anything, he needed water to drink. Tired, hurting, Aaron's usual restraint on his anger was slipping. How could they be so stupid? If only he could use his voice. He tried regardless, and, as expected, his voice caught. A tickle in pulled his attention away. Eyes watering, he heaved for air. He couldn't breathe. Calm down, Mikasa directed him, voice. Oh, who the hell cared what emotion she was displaying? Aaron felt his eyes watering, yet nothing dripped down his cheeks. He was too dehydrated to speak, cry, let alone care that she was dispassionate as ever. Calm down? His thoughts bubbled, poking behind his eyes, begging him to turn the glare on her. Calm down? Who in their right mind told a suffering man to calm down when he couldn't even speak? Aaron, she said, placing a hand on his head. You're shaking. Are you cold? Cold? Aaron was blazing hot, furious. They wasted the water he sacrificed his arm for, on him. How dare they? How could they possibly? Seething, Aaron turned his head away, the only action he could do at this point. Mikasa said nothing else. She removed her hand from his head. He couldn't hear her moving. He could hear nothing other than the blood pounding in his ears, the banging of fists against walls, the steady thud of his heart in his chest. Cleaning his wounds? Why would they, when he could? Armin should know better. Aaron was a Titan. Titans healed. Why would they waste their water on him? Why wasn't his arm healed? He trembled. Goosebumps traveled down his neck, down his spine, out his arms to his fingers. He curled his good hand. Tentative, he flexed the bad hand. Aaron, Mikasa reprimanded him at the same time as his body did. White burst across his vision. Hazily, he observed how it was different to his fury. That had been an orange-red combination. This was the white that permanently etched behind his eyes, if he stared at the sun for too long. Except now it came with an overwhelming, blistering pain. He hurt. But why? Since they'd left Trost, he'd noticed his skin steaming. Any cuts, abrasions, bruises, or sprains he gained during the day melted away once they'd settled in and the sun rose. Where was Armin? Armin would know what to do. Wait. Aaron shook his head, trying to shake the jumble of events back in place. But Armin wasted the water? Armin was smart. He always knew what to do. But Armin sent him to the Cadet Corps, and Aaron changed? But Armin was his brother. Was Armin just his friend? The Armin Aaron remembered always knew what to do. Aaron wasn't a planner. He hadn't been one before. Aaron fought. He drew attention. He believed in right and wrong. Armin chose their moves. He knew the difference between a smart choice and a stupid one. The Armin Aaron knew made a stupid decision to clean his wounds. Armin knew Aaron was a Titan for Sina's sake. He figured out Aaron before Aaron figured out himself when they were children. But Aaron came up with the plan to find water, and Mikasa didn't stop him. Armin agreed with him. Aaron's plans were always too volatile, too rash, and driven by anger, and Aaron wanted to go back to sleep. Aaron wanted to go back to Trost, back to his bunk under Jean. He wanted to challenge Annette to a match. He wanted to jostle Dennis Luart in the side, to move him over so he could settle at their shared chow table. The last time Aaron saw Annette, she screamed for help, body in the grasp of a Titan. Her head shoved in and sucked on like the fingers of a baby. He remembered Dennis rushing in with the garrison officer, Hines. If Annette screamed more, they were swallowed by the beast. Her head soon followed. The last time Aaron saw Dennis, he was frozen on a rooftop, watching Annette's last moments. Aaron hadn't had the gall to watch Dennis. The rooftop was empty. Next he looked, and Aaron, they were his friends. Aaron wanted to go home to Shiganshina, where his mama scolded him for his interest in the Survey Corps. where he was nothing but an insolent brat, starting fights and listening to Armin's stories of a great big world beyond the walls. What world? What wonderful adventures waited them? If they managed to survive this day, then what of the next? When would their trials end? Aaron wanted to go home, but there wasn't a home anymore. Shiganshina was in ruins, somewhere ahead. Trost was in ruins, somewhere behind. His family was in ruins, here in between. Was there even a point anymore? They were going to die out here. As far as anyone knew, they died back in Trost during the invasion. Aaron didn't want to. Why was he fighting? Sleep stretched out at every point. He looked at the vast land surrounding him from all sides. There were no walls, no trees, no people. Aaron stood alone in a barren world of sand. He could walk forward or sideways, or turn around and walk back. Every direction looked the same. His hands were healed, his clothes changed. He wore white from head to toe. There were no stars above, no source of light that lit his way. Still, he could see the pale sand stretching into eternity. Aaron tipped sideways and fell to the ground. Instead of the expected bruise on his shoulder, or the gritty sand in his clothes, nothing changed. Everything stayed the same. He rolled his back and looked at the cloying darkness. Pressure held him flat to the ground. There was nothing for him to fight. He could do nothing. Nothing, always. Aaron closed his eyes. When he reopened them, it was nighttime. He looked to his right, where snoring came from. Armin was curled into a ball, hands wrapped around his knees. His eyes were puffy, hair unkempt. Beyond him, Mikasa was propped against their bags, head slumped forward, eyes closed, asleep. Who was Aaron to think he could protect them when he watched friends from the academy being devoured? He turned a cold shoulder to them, ignored their agonized, dying screams. He'd run away. How could he hope to keep Armin or Mikasa safe when he couldn't keep himself safe? If his mama survived Shiganshina, Armin and Mikasa would be better off. Mama could have protected them. Instead, she was eaten by the Titans. Instead, he was left to take care of them, to fight for them. Instead, they abandoned him, and he, in turn, abandoned them. Instead. He lifted his injured arm, wincing as it throbbed. He looked at his hand. His hand was whole? Before his eyes, he watched a minuscule wisp of steam rise from the skin. He was healing.